Hello everyone. Hope you guys had a great long weekend and you enjoyed some of the sunshine. We have a couple more weeks left of school, so we are starting Unit 11. It's going to be your statistics unit. This is going to be the last unit. It's broken up typically into two parts. We're just going to do it all in one unit. We're going to call it Unit 11. For those of you who like to print, I did post this outline on Mrs. Specht and myself's WITS pages. I'm not sure about Mrs. Gerzone's class, so for those of you who do like to print, you can print this out, just the outline, and then fill in the notes from there. And if you do not have a printer or you're not printing, just hit pause and write down the stuff I have here and then fill it in as we go, okay? So let's start off with some vocab. A lot of this should look familiar to you. This is stuff that you've seen before, such as mean, median, mode, min, max, range, quartiles, interquartile range. That might be new to you. But these should sound familiar. So starting with the vocabulary, the mean, and I'm going to put down this symbol. It'll make more sense when we get into the calculator. It's a little X with a line on top. The mean is your average. The average of the data. Okay, so those of you who are calculating your averages for the end of the year, you add everything up and divide by the amount, the pieces of data that you have. That's how you find your mean. Okay, so the median, that's going to be the middle number. And I'll use the hashtag symbol, the middle number in the data. The mode, when we think of mode, we think of the word most. It kind of sounds like that. So I'm going to put that in parentheses because that's always how I remembered it. And it's the number that occurs the most in a set of data. There can be no mode. So make a little star to yourself and write, there can be no mode if there isn't a number that occurs more than another. There also can be more than one mode. If you have like two numbers that occur twice, those would both be your mode, okay? The min is the smallest number in the data. Smallest number in the data. And then your max is going to be your largest number in the data. Okay, moving on over to these three. Your range is going to be your, I'm going to write out what the formula is. It's the difference between the greatest value and the least. So we'll write it out in words. So it's the difference. And instead of greatest and least, I'm going to say min and max. Difference of your min and max. And to find that, you do your max number and subtract the min. Okay, that's what difference means, is you subtract. So that would be the formula for the range. Okay, your quartiles, now this might be new to you. You might remember it from box and whisker plots, but what your quartiles do is they divide data into 4 equal parts. So it divides data into 4 equal parts. And to show you what I mean by that, I have a set of data right here. So if I was looking at this set of data, okay, you have 4, I divided it 3 ways, but in 4 different sections. And in each section, you have the same number of data pieces. So I have 3 pieces of data in this section, 3 in this section, 3 in this section, and 3 in this section. Okay, so what we call these, we call this quartile 1 because it divides this first part with that second part. This would be quartile 2, and that's quartile 3, and it divides it into 4 equal sections, okay? You'll find out that quartile 2 and the median are the same thing. That would be the middle of the data right there as well. Okay, but we'll come back to that and we'll show you more examples. And then the interquartile range, that is going to be the difference between quartile 3 and quartile 1. So similar to your regular range, the difference between the max and the min, the interquartile range just takes your quartile 3 and subtracts quartile 1. So it's just this smaller section, the range of that smaller section. So the way we'll write that is it's the difference between, I'm going to say Q3 and Q1. So the interquartile range, we also call it the IQR. You're going to see that a lot. And it's your Q3 minus your Q1. That's the formula. We'll box that in here, bubble it in. Okay, so there's your review of the vocab. Now let's actually do some of these. I'll show you some examples. You're going to want to make sure your calculator is with you because I'm going to show you how to do these, a lot of this stuff, the fast way in your calculator. In years past, you've had to do it the long way by actually, I'll show you right now. It won't take us too long, but I'm going to show you the long way and then I'll show you the shortcut in the calculator and you're going to like the calculator once I show it to you. Okay, so let's do the long way first. And the set of data that I want you guys to write down is the following. 30. I'm going to use a different color. 30. 35. 40. 45. 50. 55. 100. Okay? So I'm just doing a small set of data here. We're going to do the long ways for all these, and then, again, I'll show you the short way. So the mean. To find the mean or the average, you add up all the pieces of data and divide by the amount that there are. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to be adding up, and I want you guys to show this work. It's going to be 30 plus 35 plus 40 plus 45 plus 50 plus 55 plus 100, you gotta be really careful that you don't miss anything. 2, 4, 6, 7. Divided by 7. So your mean is gonna equal, let's see here, let's put that all in our calculator. So make sure you're doing this with me. Obviously I can't see whether you are or not, but the goal is that you're practicing this as well and not just making me do all the work over here. Whoopsies. Plus 100 equals, so you can write that down or you can just go ahead and divide everything. That is not right. See, this is why it's good to have kids checking. I think I accidentally multiplied. Plus 40 plus 45 plus 50 plus 55 plus 100. That is right, 355, and then you divide by the amount of data that you have, which is 7. And we can round this. It doesn't, there's no specific instructions. I'm going to say round to the nearest tenth, so that will be 1 decimal point over, and we'll keep it a 7 there. So the mean is going to be 50.7. Okay. Your median is your middle number. So this is an odd set of data, meaning that you are going to have an exact middle number. If it was even, then you'd have to like find the middle of the 2 middle numbers, I guess you would say. But since this is an odd set of data, I count 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 in is going to be the middle, right? There's 3 on this side, 3 on this side. So my median number, or the middle, is going to be 45. The mode is going to be which number occurs the most. Well, in this case, none of them repeat. They all just are represented one time, so there is no mode. You do not want to write 0 here if it's no mode, because that would imply that 0 is the mode. 0 is an actual number. So you have to make sure you write no mode. Okay? Your range is going to be your max minus your min. So I'm going to write the formula first. Max minus min. And it's going to be 100 minus 30. So 100 minus 30. And we can do that in our heads. The range is going to be 70. Your minimum is the smallest number in the data. Okay, so I'm going to get some highlighters so that we can start highlighting some stuff. Your minimum is the smallest number. It's going to be 30. I'm going to get the max next. So I'm going to jump around a little bit here. Your max number is the highest number, so it's going to be 100. And then now let's find our quartiles. Now, quartile 1, 2, and 3, remember it separates the data into 3 equal parts. So in this case, you can see there's 3 pieces of data in the first section, 3 in the second, 3 in the third, and 3 in the fourth. We need to find where I can draw a line as to where it would separate the data into equal parts. Now, this is not as much data as this example. And sometimes you draw a line in between 2 pieces of data like I did here. Sometimes the piece of data actually is where the line is going to be. So in this case, where would I draw my line? Well, here's one giveaway, and I always start with the median because it seems the easiest to start with. The median and quartile 2 are the same number. Okay, so I'm just going to draw a line here. The median is going to be 45. So start by just drawing where your median is, and I'll draw it like this to show a section off. And then look from here. So not including the median, there's 3 pieces of data. Well, where would I draw my line to separate them in half? Well, right in the middle of the second piece of data. Okay, so that's going to be your Q1. And then the same goes for the top piece. You don't include the median if you used it. So I have 3 pieces of data. Where would I draw my line to divide those in half? Would be right there. So that would be my Q3. Okay, my median is my Q2. So go ahead and record those. Your quartile 1 is going to be the number 35. Quartile 2 is your median, 45, and quartile 3 is going to be 55. Okay, and then your interquartile range is going to be your Q3 minus your Q1. So in this case, 55 minus 35. So that equals 20. Okay, so that was the long way. Now I'm going to show you, I should have left more room there, the calculator steps, okay? And this is going to be new to you because for most of you, it will be new. If you haven't used a graphing calculator before this year, then you will have not known how to do this. So, the nice thing about the calculator is that it calculates all this data for you, for the most part. Most of it. I shouldn't say all of it. Okay, the button that we haven't used yet that you want to go into to calculate this data is the stat button. So you first hit stat, and then you hit enter because you want to go into edit. So I'm going to go ahead and write those steps down. Step 1, stat. Step 2, edit. Okay, you have to clear out, now you might not have anything in there, but if you do, you have to clear out what's in there. So in my L2, you have to tab up to the top here, hit clear, and then hit enter, and then it will all go away. Okay, and then tab over, tab up if you have something in there, hit clear, and hit enter. If you're already looking at it blank, then you're in good shape. In a rare case, you might not have an L1 and L2, or it might start with L3. In that case, send me an email if you're not seeing your L1 and L2, and I'll help you figure out something in the future. But just put your data in the first list here. These are called lists. So I have one list of data. Here it is right here. I'm going to plug that in to my L1. Be careful when you do this. So I'm going to hit 30. You just type in 30, enter, and there it goes in there. 30, 35, 40. The biggest mistake is people enter it in wrong. 45, 50, 55, and 100. And there is something I want to talk about with 100. It's not one of your vocab terms that came from your notes, but it is important to understand. So I'm going off topic here, but I want to talk about 100. Notice how all these numbers are pretty close together. They all jumped by 5, and then this kind of 100 seemed like the odd man out. We call that an outlier when a piece of data is way further off than the rest of the pieces of data. If you were to plot this on a scatter plot, these would be close together, and then 100 would be way over to the right. Okay, so we call that an outlier. And you might want to just outlier. Now I'm questioning how to spell that ER. I think so. Good thing I'm not an English teacher. Okay, so you have your pieces of data in here. You want to quit out of here. So to quit, you hit second quit. Okay, it's going to store that. It knows it's in there. And then to calculate these statistics, you go back into stat. So stat edit, I'm going to say step 3 is put data in L1. I don't know why I put a dot there. Put data in L1. Step 4 is you can quit out, or you can just, I think you can just actually go right back into stat again. So I'm going to say stat again. Step 5. So this is where we are now. Step 5, you're going to tab over to the calculate. So I want to get to here. Okay, so I'm going to tab over right and go to calc. So stat calc. And step 6, since this is just one list, it represents, let's say these were test scores, or I don't know, could be really anything. Miles ran, Miles walked in the week. This is just one list of things. I'm not talking about two different topics here. I'm just talking about one list. So we go into one variation stats, okay? So you're going to go calc, and it's going to be one var stats. So let's go ahead and hit enter here. Now we put data into L1. You have to tell your calculator where you put your data. We only have data in L1, remember. Okay, we didn't put anything in the list 2. So where it says frequency list, you don't want to have anything there. Mine says L2, which I'm going to talk about that in a second, but I don't have a frequency list. There's no data in L2, so hit clear if you have that. Some of you might not have that there. Frequency list should just be blank right now. And I'm tabbing down to calculate. Okay, now we have to talk about what all this means. And there's a glare, which is not great. Okay, so one var stats, and then just step 7 is enter. Okay, so let's talk about what some of these crazy symbols are. We're only going to be looking at one of them for right now. And what I want you to look at is the X with the line above it. Notice 50.7, that should ring a bell. That was your mean. Okay, so your mean, and remember I had you right up here, the X with the line. That's the symbol for mean. Okay, so maybe right next to mean, draw your little X with the line above it. That's important that you realize that's the symbol for mean, okay? And I'm just checking that our data points match up, which they do. So I knew I was right there, okay? Your calculator doesn't show you the median or the mode or the range, but it does give you all this info for the most part except for the IQR. Okay, so I'm trying to get out of the glare here. So you have to tap down, use your arrows, go down, and you're gonna find, they give you your min, which is 30. They give you your Q1, 35, so that's good. They give you your median, which is your Q2, same thing, 45. Oh, so they do give you your median. I lied. Just kidding. Q3 is 55, and your max is 100, okay? They don't calculate range or interquartile range for you. You have to actually calculate that once you're given this piece of information. But you have everything you need from the calculator to do so. Okay, so the calculator is nice. Now, this wasn't a long list, but imagine if it was, you would definitely not want to spend time doing the long way. From this point forward, we're always going to use the calculator, okay? So that was an example of how to do it the long way, which we're hopefully not going to have to do again, and then how to do it in your calculator. So make sure, and I'm going to just highlight this so that this stands out here. And anytime we do something new in the calculator, it takes a while to practice. So that's what I want you guys to do in the follow-up questions, is really practice these calculator steps, okay? They are really important. I'm going to do something similar with example 2. So the calculator steps are going to look very similar, just one little difference. And it's important that you see the difference of when to do what. So example 2, I'm calling this the frequency list, okay? Now let's say this chart represents scores on a quiz. The highest score could have been an 8. The lowest score would have been a 1. Okay? Frequency list means how many times did this score occur. So frequency is how many times something occurs. And I didn't mean to actually write in there, so we're going to squeeze that in there. So frequency is how many times something occurs. I should have added that to the vocab, but I'll squeeze it in right here. How many times, that doesn't work, and I'll do black. How many times something occurs. So it's important to know that. And what I want to show you right now, you do not have to write this down, but what I want to show you is what this means. If I was looking at it long ways, okay, if I was looking at the data all spread out like this, like horizontally. This is just in a chart. But what it means is there was 4 people, a frequency of 4, meaning 4 people scored an 8. So if I was, I should probably start with 1. Usually we start at the bottom. So I'll start down here. Okay, 1 person scored a 1. So if I'm looking at the data, 1 person would have scored a 1. So 1 would be here. And again, you don't have to write this down. I just want you to see it. You can write it down if you want. the score of 2 was scored 3 times. So 3 people scored a 2. So it would be 2, 2, 2. 7 people scored a 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You get the picture here? 2 people scored a 4. So 4, 4. 6 people scored a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 people scored a 6, so 2 6s. Nobody scored a 7, so I'm not even going to write it. And 4 people scored an 8, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's a relatively long list. And you can see when numbers repeat like this, why it would be beneficial to show it in a chart. Kind of looks nicer. It's easier to read. I'm not going to have to count like, oh, there's how many 5s? 6 of them? I can see it right here. Okay, so that's why we use frequency lists. And that's what frequency means, is how many times did something occur. Okay, how many 5s were there? Well, there were 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so just so you understand what that means. Now, I'm going to show you, instead of the long way, how to put this in your calculator. So again, we're going to follow these steps. I'm going to add one thing to the steps when we get to step 3. So we got to go to Stat again. So clear everything out. Stat and hit Edit. And let's clear out L1. So this is good practice. You have to tab up so that it's hovering in L1. You have to hit clear. Nothing happens because you have to then hit enter. And then it all clears, okay? In your list 1, you're going to be putting your scores. So this column is my L1, and if you want to write that down, this column is going to be your L1. This is going to be your L2, your frequency list. So the scores were 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Make sure I plug those in right. Yep. And my frequencies now are, you have to make sure these match up. Okay, so next to the 8, I have to put the 4. Next to the 7, I must put the 0. Has to go in there. 6 would be the 2, 6, 2, 7, 3, 1. Now triple check yourself that that matches that. Okay, it's very easy to type something in wrong. So you always want to make sure that you got that correct, okay? Now from here, what we're going to do is step 3. So we put data in L1, but then we also put data in L2 if there's a frequency list. So I'm going to add in a different color, L2 if frequency list. Okay, so you put in L2 if there's a frequency list. All right? Then we're going to go ahead and go to Stat again. So yeah, you don't even have to quit out. You can just go right to Stat again. Go to Calc, 1 variation stats. This is all part of your steps. Now this is the tricky part, okay? So we go to 1 variation stats. If there's a frequency list, my calculator must know there is one. Right now my calculator just thinks, okay, I got something in L1. I have to tell it there's something in L2, that there's a frequency list. So I go down, and to tell it that there's something in L2, you hit second, blue here, 2, because look at what is right above the 2 is this blue L2. That's why we hit the blue second and L2, and there it pops up right here. Okay, so in red, I'm going to say 1 variation stats, remember frequency. Y'all, you can't see me. Sorry, I'm not doing a very good job with this today. Frequency list L2. I'm just going to show that. And I can actually write what it is. List would be, this is what your calculator is going to look like. Frequency list L2 if there is a frequency. Sometimes there's not. Like for example up here, there was no frequency list. Here there is, okay? So that's why we have to put L2. And we're gonna hit calculate. And these are all my stats that I want. So how easy is that? Get out of the glare. The mode, okay, so the mode I'm gonna come back to, but the median is 4. The mean, remember that's the X with the line above it, so 4.4. The range we're gonna have to come back to. The min is 1, my Q1 is 3, my median is 4. My Q3 is 5.5. And my max is 8. To find the range, I'm going to do my max minus my min. So it's max minus min. So it's 8 minus 1. So it's 7. And the interquartile range is Q3 minus Q1. So 5.5 minus 3, which equals 2.5. Okay. So that's all the info here. The mode is what I have to talk about next. The mode, what number happens the most? Well, you have to find the number that occurred most in the frequency. So that's when you look at your frequency list here. Which number occurred the most? And it might make more sense to see it like this, but you always pick the highest frequency. Now, this is a common mistake. Okay, this is the highest number in the frequency list, but 6 is not my mode. 6 is just telling me that there were 6 number 5s. So just to give you guys another way of seeing it, which number occurred the most here? Well, it definitely wasn't 6, okay? But 5 occurred the most because it occurred 6 times. So we have to write 5 for the mode. Remember, they want the number that occurred the most, and 5 definitely occurred the most because it has the highest frequency, okay? So just be careful. That it can be tricky. All right. On the back here is your follow-up questions. So I'm going to show you them. Hit pause if you aren't printing so that you can copy these down. So hit pause right now, copy this section down. Hit pause here and copy this section down, okay? I forgot to do something on the front. I'm just looking at this. Total frequency, whoopsies. N represents your total frequency. Your calculator does that for you as well. I forgot to show you. N, there's 25 numbers here. And the way you calculate that is you add up all the frequency, or you can just look here, 25. If I were to add all these numbers up, there'd be 25 scores total. Sorry about that. I blame the long weekend. I'm not fully with it today. Okay, so here are your follow-up questions. For question 1 and 2, find the given data sets. This is just going to be one set of data, so there will be no L2. So right now your calculator is going to just have that automatically in there. You have to clear it out for A and B here, for anything in section 1. So I'm just going to write a little note to you guys. No L2 here. Same with this one, no L2. These now have a frequency list, so this is where you have to add L1 and L2 into the frequency list. So you're going to have to put it back in, and remember to do that, you hit second L2. And I'll go over all of this in the next video, but I do want you guys practicing this. This is how you learn, so you're going to have to practice this on your own, and we'll go over it, okay? I hope you guys have a great week. I hope the sun is shining and you get to go outside. And please email us if you have any questions. Bye-bye.